She kissed my scars, said she loved the broken parts of me. But then she used every weakness I showed her to destroy me from within. Before her, I was just trying to make it through the days. I wasn't looking for love. I wasn't even looking for healing. I had made peace with being half alive. You don't come from the kind of house I did and expect softness. My childhood was a battlefield, and I was drafted at birth. My father, a drunk, a tyrant, a man who used silence like a weapon and fists like punctuation. My mother, absent even when she was present. Eyes glued to the television or her wine glass, pretending the screams from the other room didn't concern her. She left when I was 13. Just a note on the fridge and half a bottle of whiskey left on the counter. I remember reading that note over and over again. I'm sorry. I need peace. Maybe one day you'll understand. Peace. Funny, isn't it? How some people find peace in leaving, while others spend their entire lives searching for it in what's left behind. By the time I turned 16, I had stopped believing in love. Not in the dramatic, romantic sense. I mean love as in the quiet presence of someone who doesn't flinch when you cry. I didn't know what that looked like. I kept my head down, avoided eye contact, buried myself in books. Pages were safer than people. Books didn't hit back. Books didn't scream at you for existing. College was never a dream. It was an escape. I didn't care what I studied. I just needed distance. Somewhere to be known. Somewhere I could build new skin over old wounds. That's where she found me. Lena. She was the kind of girl who walked into a room like she owned the air in it. Honey brown hair always tied in a messy bun, oversized sweaters that made her look like she was wrapped in warmth itself, and a laugh, God, that laugh, like wind chimes in spring. She wasn't supposed to notice me. But she did. It was raining that day. I remember because my hoodie was soaked through, and I was trying to hide in the library, pretending I wasn't shivering. She sat next to me like she had known me forever. Is that Wuthering Heights? She asked. I nodded. She smiled. That's not a book. That's a cry for help. I chuckled, the first time I'd laughed in weeks. We talked. About books, mostly, and pain, though we didn't call it that at first. She told me she was studying psychology. I like broken people, she said with a grin. They're more honest. That should have been my first warning. But I was already drowning in her. We started spending more time together. Coffee after class. Walks in the park. Nights on the phone until dawn. She never pushed me to talk, but when I did, she listened like every word mattered. And slowly, I began to unravel. I told her about my father, how I flinched at the sound of beer bottles being opened. I told her about my mother, how I still checked the mailbox every year on my birthday hoping maybe she'd write. I told her about the nights I couldn't sleep, how I felt like I didn't belong in the world, how I sometimes wondered if I was born broken. She didn't judge. She didn't run. Instead, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're not broken. You were just never held right." I fell in love with her in that moment. Not the silly, schoolboy kind of love. The kind of love that feels like oxygen after drowning. She was warm in a world that had only ever been cold to me. We started dating soon after. She moved into my tiny apartment 3 months later, said her roommate was too exhausting. But I think she just wanted to fix me up close. And I let her. I remember one night clearly, I had a panic attack. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My hands were shaking, chest collapsing inward like the world was folding in on me. She didn't speak. She just sat behind me, legs crossed, back against mine, and whispered, "Breathe with me. Inhale. Exhale." Slowly, we found rhythm. After, I asked why she didn't get scared. She said, "Because love doesn't flinch." She was always saying things like that. Little phrases that wrapped around my trauma like ribbons, turning my pain into something poetic. She learned every trigger, every weakness, every fear. She kissed the scar on my left wrist and said, "This is where you survived." She kissed the one near my collarbone and said, "This is where you carried too much." She kissed them all, like she was rewriting this story of my skin. And I thought I had finally found someone who didn't want to fix me, just hold me. But there's a difference between someone holding your heart and someone studying it just to see where it bleeds. She knew everything. Where I kept my secrets. What made me spiral. What I feared most. And I told her. Because I trusted her. Because I was naive enough to think that when someone kisses your scars, it means they won't open new ones. I had no idea I was handing a scalpel to someone who didn't want to heal me. She wanted to dissect me. And once she was done making me love her, she began the slow, surgical process of tearing me apart. I don't know the exact moment she started changing. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't happen all at once. It bleeds in slow, like poison in the veins. By the time you taste the bitterness, it's already too late. At first, it was subtle. She started pulling away, not in distance, but in presence. She'd be there, in the room, in the bed, in the same conversations, but something was missing. Her eyes didn't settle on me the same. Her touch felt rehearsed. She said she was tired. School, work, pressure. I didn't question it. I made her tea. I gave her space. I told myself, this is what love is. Patience, understanding. But then came the silences. Not the comforting kind. Not the quiet nights we used to have where just lying beside each other felt like peace. No, this was different. This was cold. Sharp-edged. Deliberate. I'd ask a question, and she'd shrug. I'd open up, and she'd check her phone. I'd reach for her, and she'd flinch, not physically, but emotionally. Like she was mentally stepping back, brick by brick, wall by wall. She started pointing things out. The way I hesitated when ordering food. How I sometimes talked too softly. How I still had nightmares. Babe, it's been years. Don't you think it's time to grow past that? I laughed it off. Once. Twice. But then she said something I couldn't shake. Sometimes I feel like I'm dating a rehab project, not a partner. That one hit hard. And she knew it would. The next day, she acted like it never happened. She kissed me. She brought home my favorite takeout. She smiled and said, "You know I love you, right?" And I nodded, like a fool. Because love has a funny way of making you doubt yourself before you ever doubt the other person. But it got worse. She began to isolate me, not by locking me away, but by manipulating the narrative. She'd whisper doubts into my ear like they were confessions of concern. "You know your friend Daniel, I think he pities you. Your coworkers. They don't really respect you. They just feel sorry. My mom said you seem fragile. I defended you, obviously. But maybe just toughen up around her?" I started second-guessing everyone. She became the only voice I trusted. The only constant in a world full of shadows. And then, she started twisting my trauma against me. We had a fight one night. Not even a big one. I'd forgotten to pick up something from the store. She blew up. I said I didn't deserve to be yelled at. And she snapped back. "Oh please, not everything is abuse just because your daddy hit you. Grow the hell up." I froze. It was like every bone in my body shattered at once. She had reached into the deepest part of me, the wound I had entrusted to her, and used it like a dagger. She apologized, of course. Tears. "I didn't mean it. I was angry. I love you. You know I love you." And again, I forgave. Because that's what you do when you're already convinced you're the broken one. But the mask kept slipping. I noticed texts. Late night calls she'd answer in the bathroom. New clothes. Cologne on her that wasn't mine. I asked, gently. She said I was insecure. Said maybe I should work on my jealousy issues in therapy. She even offered to book me a session. The manipulation was so layered, so smooth, so clinical, I couldn't see where her concern ended and her control began. And then came the breaking point. I got promoted. After years of clawing my way out of hell, I was finally offered the position of editor-in-chief at the publishing house. I ran home, excited. I thought she'd be proud. She wasn't. She didn't smile. Didn't hug me. She looked up from her phone and said, "So what does that mean for us? You're going to be too busy now?" I laughed. Thought she was joking. She wasn't. That night, we didn't speak. She turned her back to me in bed. And for the first time in months, I didn't try to reach for her. 2 weeks later, I came home early. She wasn't alone. I stood at the doorway, silent, invisible again, just like I'd always felt as a child, watching the woman who had kissed my scars, laughing in another man's arms. She saw me, didn't even flinch, just said, "I didn't expect you back so soon." That was it. No denial, no guilt, just a calm, rehearsed line, like she was reading from a script she'd written in advance. And I realized, she never loved me. She studied me. Every kiss was an analysis. Every hug a diagnosis. Every word of comfort was just data, gathering intel on how best to dismantle me later. She didn't fall out of love. She was never in it. She saw a broken man and thought, how far can I bend him before he breaks completely? And I had broken. But what she didn't know was this. The pieces she shattered, I was going to use them to rebuild myself. Sharper, colder, deadlier. There's a silence that follows betrayal. Not the kind that comes from peace. The kind that feels like the world screaming into your ears, but all you can hear is your own heartbeat. Breaking. I didn't confront her that night. Didn't yell. Didn't cry. Didn't ask questions. I just walked out. Because some things are too poisonous to fight with words. I sat in my car for over an hour. Engine running. Hands gripping the wheel so tight I thought they might snap. I didn't know whether to drive into traffic or just disappear. My mind was a storm, not the kind with thunder and lightning, but the slow one. The kind that floods everything quietly, until you're drowning before you even notice the waters reached your lips. I didn't sleep for 3 nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, her lips on someone else. Her voice telling me I was fragile. Her hands, the same ones that once traced my scars like sacred lines, now touching someone else with the same fake tenderness. My home felt haunted. Every object was a reminder. The mug she gifted me with "Brave Soul" written on it. The sweater she wore that still hung on the chair. The picture of us, arms wrapped, eyes lying. I should have burned it all. But I didn't. Because part of me still clung to the why. Why would someone who claimed to love me destroy me from the inside out? And then it hit me. She never wanted to love me. She wanted to own me. I was her experiment, a case study in vulnerability. She loved the idea of being the girl who could fix the broken man. Until I started fixing myself. That's when I remembered the little jabs. How every time I stood up straighter, she'd remind me of my past. Every time I made progress, she'd question it. She didn't want me healed. She wanted me dependent. Because power was her addiction. And I had made the mistake of giving her mine, willingly. I quit my job 2 weeks later. Not because I was weak. Because I needed space. Not from work, but from who I had become around her. I moved out of the apartment. Packed only what I needed. The rest, the furniture, the memories, the lies, I left for her to choke on. I disappeared from everyone. Stopped answering texts. Blocked mutual friends. I went off the map like a ghost finally set free from the chains of his unfinished story. And in that silence, in the ache, the rage, the hollowed out pit she left in me, something began to shift. It started with a thought. Just a whisper. What if you stop surviving and start becoming something else? Not a victim. Not even a survivor. But something. Colder. Sharper. Precise. She had taken everything. But she made one mistake. She thought I would just feel. She forgot that broken men who rebuild don't always come back gentle. Some come back with fire in their veins. And I was done being gentle. She wanted a monster. She'd kiss the scars of one. Now she'd meet him. Revenge isn't loud. It isn't screaming in someone's face or smashing their windows or making some dramatic scene. That's emotion, and emotion is sloppy. True revenge is quiet. It walks like a shadow. It waits. And it learns. That's what I did. For 6 months, I disappeared. Not just from her, from the world. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment on the other side of the city, changed my number, deleted all my socials. To everyone who knew me before, I simply ceased to exist. But I wasn't gone. I was watching. Because I knew her. Knew how she moved. How she thought. And I knew that someone like her, someone who fed on control, would eventually get bored. And when she did, she'd need her next fix. Her next project. I started by tracing her digital footprint. She hadn't blocked me. She didn't need to. She thought she'd won. Instagram. Still posting carefully curated soft girl pictures. Coffee mugs, sweater sleeves, mental health quotes with captions like, "Healing isn't linear." The irony nearly made me laugh. But I kept watching. Eventually, she started dating again. A guy named Harris. Finance bro, clean cut, generic smile. The kind of man who probably never cried in front of anyone. But I noticed something. He started to change. At first, subtle things. Less posts, less smiles. A caption that read, "Sometimes silence speaks louder than words." I knew that silence. I'd lived in it. Then his account went dark. Just gone. I knew what had happened. She had sunk her hooks in, and she was doing to him what she did to me. And that's when I knew. I wasn't her only victim. I was just the one who survived long enough to realize it. So I started building a case, not legal. Personal. I contacted Harris under a fake name. Said I was a journalist doing a piece on psychological abuse in relationships. He didn't open up at first. But eventually, he cracked. And when he did, everything spilled out. The gaslighting. The isolation. The "you're too sensitive" comments. The way she'd use his trauma as leverage. The way she twisted his therapy sessions into ammo. Every word felt like déjà vu. Every sentence was another nail in her coffin. And he wasn't the only one. I found 2 others. Same story. Different names. Different versions of the same hell. And that's when I made the decision. She didn't just hurt me. She collected people. Used them. Drained them. It wasn't heartbreak. It was predation. So I began phase 1. Exposure. I compiled everything: voice notes, texts, screenshots, timelines. Anonymous testimonies from her past partners. I created a digital profile of her, not the one she posted online, but the one she tried to keep hidden. And then I leaked it. Not to the public. To the people who mattered to her. Her internship supervisor. Her psychology department head. The mental health blog she contributed to. They all received the same anonymous email. A case study in manipulation. The untold truth of Lena, redacted. No slander. No exaggerations. Just facts. Cold, verified. Unforgiving. She lost her internship within days. University opened a misconduct inquiry the following week. I didn't stop there. Phase 2. Isolation. I sent the file to her closest friends. Every person who once looked at her like she was made of magic. Some defended her. At first. But slowly, the doubt crept in. Because the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs consistency. Screenshots of her own words. Audio of her gaslighting a crying ex. Timeline comparisons showing overlapping relationships. And the worst part? The cold way she described us all. I had found a recorded voice memo she'd sent her friend once. She was laughing. Said, "It's like collecting wounded birds. They cling so hard to anyone who pretends to care." That was the sentence that sealed her fate. By month 3, she was socially radioactive. friends stopped replying. The likes on her post dried up. One by one, the lights in her little kingdom went out. And still, I wasn't done. Phase 3. Confrontation. I didn't want to hurt her. Not the way she hurt me. I wanted her to see herself. So I sent her one final letter. No return address. Typed, printed, precise. This is not about revenge. This is about balance. You kissed my scars and called them poetry, and then used my trauma like a scalpel. You studied the parts of me that bled, and thought that made you a surgeon. But now, you're not in control. You're not the one diagnosing. You're the case study. And your file is closed. I never got a reply. Didn't expect one. But I know she read it. How? Because she deleted everything. Her socials, her blog, her carefully curated healing image. Gone. Erased. She finally vanished. And not the way I did, not quiet, not peaceful. She left behind a vacuum. Because the thing about people like her is, they don't survive in silence. They need attention like oxygen. And I made sure she suffocated. People always think revenge ends when the other person crumbles. But the truth? It ends when you stop needing them to. And I thought I had. Months passed. She stayed gone. No posts, no whispers, not even rumors. I got a new job, smaller publishing house, quieter space. No spotlight, no politics. Just ink, words, and peace. I liked it better that way. I started therapy again, real therapy, this time for me, not for someone else's comfort. I began writing again. Not about her, not even about me. Just fiction. Short stories, broken heroes, quiet monsters. Life moved forward. Not perfectly, but honestly. Then, one morning, I got a package. No return address. No name. Just a box. Inside, a small, leather-bound notebook. Old. Familiar. My journal. The one I used to keep when I was with her. The one I thought I'd burned the night I moved out. I felt my pulse spike. Inside the cover was a note. Handwritten. Her writing. I'd recognize it anywhere. Found this while cleaning, thought you might want it back. I didn't read it, swear. But I kept one page. Yours always, L. I flipped through it. Every page intact. My handwriting, raw and messy, filled with pain. Then I noticed one page had been torn out. Ripped clean. The date. The night we first met. I remember what I wrote that night. I'd never forget it. She has lightning in her eyes and sadness in her smile. And something tells me she could ruin me. But I don't even care. I think I'd let her. She kept that page. She kept that page. Not the love letters. Not the apologies. Not the dreams. That one. The one where I predicted my own downfall and chose it anyway. And that's when the truth hit me. The final twist. This was never about her needing to break me. She just wanted to prove I'd let her. And I did. I handed her every weapon she used. I walked willingly into the fire and smiled through the burn. Because deep down, some part of me didn't believe I deserved peace. I thought love had to hurt. She didn't create the monster. She just woke it. And when I destroyed her, I wasn't avenging myself. I was punishing her for becoming the mirror I never wanted to face. She made me see the truth. I wasn't broken. I was wired for war. She just gave me a target. So where does that leave me? Not healed. Not haunted. Just awake. No more pretending to be soft just to be loved. No more bleeding in someone else's hands. Now, I keep the blade. And I smile when they ask about my scars. Because if someone dares kiss them again, I'll make sure they know. Some wounds don't need saving. Some were made to remind you. What bleeds can also bite.